Yeah, we got you though.
But let's talk about notable injuries off the bat and just see kind of what's going on now. The biggest news is Saquon is out, so that's going to make an impact for this Thursday night game. So if you have, any Giants running backs, you might want to, keep note of that. Now, do I think any of those Giants running backs are going to be worth a while in a matchup against one of the better defenses in the NFL? It's probably not recommended against the San Francisco defense. So regardless of what you have, I think that you probably have to stay away. Also, just going down the line, these are all questionable players across the board. Some are leaning more towards playing. Some are maybe just kind of in the air. I think Jacoby Myers on the Raiders should be available after missing last week with concussion protocols. But David Montgomery, questionable. Aaron Jones and Christian Watson for the Green Bay Packers. That kind of affects some aspects of that game. Scotty, which one of these kind of stands out to you, and which ones would you recommend?
I think as far as guys I don't expect to play that are questionable status, Eckler, after missing last week, was a DNP again today, did not practice. That's not a great sign moving forward. David Montgomery, I'd be shocked. I feel like he's going to be out a couple weeks. He said it himself that it's a couple weeks he's dealing with, but their coach refuses to admit that. So I don't expect David Montgomery to play. The two Packers at the end both didn't play, and Aaron Jones and Christian Watson. Last week, Christian Watson hasn't played all season. The hamstring, maybe, I feel like he's maybe I don't know, I'm guessing here, but maybe one more week away. I could see both of those guys not playing, but I expect Ayuk, Henry, Cooper, Waddle, all those guys on that left-hand side, outside of Saquon, obviously, who's out, to play this week.
Yeah, I think a lot of those, 2 through 7 for the most part. Again, Eckler's a weird one, but I think a lot of those guys have a decent chance. But again, with these, you got to take it with a grain of salt. You got to go check the notifications on your phone, check the updates leading up to each and every single matchup, so you know exactly whether or not you need to change out any of these players. But let's dive into quarterbacks. So quarterbacks here, we have our top 10. Now, we have a handful here. Jalen Hurts and Justin Herbert coming in here, number 2 and number 3 behind Patrick Mahomes. I think you had a couple thoughts on those two players, Scotty.
I think, Herbert and Cousins were listen, I just think we kind of talked about that game. I expect a lot of points, so Herbert and Cousins to me are big plays. Hurts is literally at the top because if they get down to the 1 or 2 yard line, they're just going to do their little sneak push thing, and he's going to get a rushing touchdown. They do it better than anyone. So that's part of what makes Hurts attractive as a quarterback starter. Not that he's not good otherwise, but it helps a lot when when you're in at the 1 yard line. Hurts is, you might as well just put it on the board. Hurts is going to score a touchdown and get you that 6 points rather than the 4 for passing. Justin Fields is still here at 10, and that's more a testament to there weren't even 10 quarterbacks I really liked this week. More so than Fields. This is your last chance, Justin, and you're going against my Chiefs, so maybe don't. Maybe just fail again so I can take you off this damn rankings. But the upside with the rushing for him is too much. Where if he can even get 75 yards rushing or something, which is a lot for a quarterback, I get, but not wild for him. Then he's a top 10 quarterback for sure with those stats. So,
well, you also got to think
last week for him.
You got to think about it though. To have as horrendous games as the Bears have had in the first couple of weeks, and just it hasn't been going well, he still put up 14.54 points in week 1 and 14.74 points in week 2. Given the fact that he hasn't exactly played the best in those matchups, and the fact that that's his kind of floor, I mean, you kind of like the floor. I mean, you know what you're getting. If that's the worst case scenario with Justin Fields, that's maybe worth that top 10, pick, knowing that you're guaranteed to get at least 14, 15 points for your team, knowing who you're playing against and where you're at. Anything else is a bonus. So if you have a bad defense that he's going up against, Justin Fields, given the circumstances of that offense, is still going to be able to put up some fantasy football numbers for your team. So that's a weird one for us. It's like that's the difference between, like, we were talking about this before the season, is like there's some guys that aren't going to be good in real life football, but fantasy is a whole different ball game. So there you go. Trevor Lawrence 8, Dak Prescott 9, Tua at 7, going against Denver.
Dak has a favorable matchup. 2 against Denver. Josh Allen probably a little lower than most have him, but kind of that roller coaster ride of, like, if he starts turning the ball over, you don't know what you're gonna get. But if he doesn't, he's probably closer to, like, number 3 on this list, if not 2 or 1 with the matchup they have against a Washington team that didn't exactly ball out defensively against your Broncos last week.
Yeah. Saquon isn't hurt anymore? No, Saquon's hurt. Yeah, he's hurt.
Saquon's officially out tomorrow.
Yeah.
So he's not playing. Maybe you misheard us, but that's what we said. He's not playing tomorrow.
So yeah, if you have Saquon, do not play him. Play somebody else in his spot. All right, wide receiver rankings. Here we go. Jay Jettis here at number 1. Then you got Tyreek, CD, Stephon Diggs, Keenan Allen rounding out the top 5. Then you get into Amon-Ra St. Brown, Adams, AJ Brown, and a couple Pua Nakua.
Puka. We're missing a letter there. No big deal.
Puka Nakua or Pua. Did I say Pua? Yeah, yeah.
Well, it's spelled Pua.
Yeah,
that could have been me. That could have been you. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it was definitely me.
Okay. All right. Because you have called him Pua like all night, and I keep saying Puka. There's a K.
It's Pua. I'm just gonna call him Pua for the rest of my life because that's just his name now. Yeah, he's
kind of been pooing on his parade, being like, just trade that guy. Trade that guy if you got him.
But we have highlighted, well, not on this graphic, but we have CeeDee Lamb and Keenan Allen in the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Top 5 here that kind of stand out to us this week, Scotty.
Yeah, I mean, CD, I feel like people sleep on CeeDee Lamb a little bit. He had a monster week last week in that Jets game. I don't know if he scored, but he had like 11 grabs, about $140. Let me look at that. And obviously in a matchup this week against the Cardinals, favorable matchup for him and really Cowboy players in general. He had 11 for 143. I didn't even know for sure, but that's I was pretty right on there. So CD moving forward, if he can stay healthy, is not a player. I mean, no one's going to have Keenan Allen as high as probably we do here at 5. Keenan Allen, monster week last year. I've been high on him there, and we've talked about that game. Highest total of the week. Keenan Allen is clearly the number 1 option. Keep close earlier is like, it's Quentin Johnston's going to start this week, so they're going to win. Well, Keenan Allen's their number 1 option by far. He went for 8 catches, 111 yards, and 2 tutties last week. So we get him in the top 5 here. Amon-Ra, I do have a little bit of concern there with, like, it looked like maybe there was some turf toe that occurred in the game last week. I think he'll play, but little cause for concern there. And then a couple rooks to close it out. Or not rooks. Chris Olave is in the second year. I don't know why I said that. Puka Nakua, who we've talked plenty about, or Pua Nakua, whatever you want to call him, gets into our top 10 because why not, Chris? Why not?
Yeah.
And then Chris Olave, who, despite the Saints not being very prolific offensively through 2 games, he has been the one saving grace on offense for that team, and he's been great through 2 weeks. So I like Chris Olave's talent and his ability moving forward, so he gets the number 10 spot here.
Yeah, Allen is the big one that you singled out. I'm going to single out here. He only had 2 performances of at least 100 yards in 2022, and it took him only the second game in 2020
a lot
to reach that mark. Yeah, and that's the thing. If he's healthy, I mean, he's easily a top 5 fantasy option from a wide receiver standpoint across the board. He's so good. He just never is healthy enough. So if he can stay healthy, he's going to finish this season as a top 5 wide receiver easily. It's just how long is the clock ticking on whether or not he's going to have I don't wish anything. I tend to jinx a lot of things and players and situations when I say those types of things, but I've seen this a couple times where I just want him to be healthy so he can make it through a season and have those points for your fantasy teams. But he is on fire right now. I honestly think he's one of the better wide receivers, putting up 14, almost 15 points in week 1 and 31 points in week 2. Crazy. So there you go. Running back rankings. Here we go. We got number 1, Christian McCaffrey. No surprise there. Tony Pollard. We also had that injury issue with Chubb, which is super sad. And you just hate to see it. Like, one of the best running backs of recent memory in the NFL by far. Like, he's just, in his first 2 or 3 years, the stats that he's accumulated are unprecedented. Like, it's crazy to think what he's accomplished. And to see him have a crazy year-long injury last year, going into this season and having another just devastating. If you saw the replay, I recommend you don't look at it, but insane what prayers up to him to get better. And I just don't know if we're ever going to see Nick Chubb the same way, and which is a shame because he's spectacular.
I believe Nick Chubb averages I know he does. Over his career, he averages, I think, like 5.3 yards per carry, which all time would be, I think, like third or fourth.
I was going to say third or fourth.
Yeah. I cares. I think he's only behind like Jim Brown and like Jamal Charles for yards per carry. He's a monster. He's a beast. Unfortunately, this knee was the one that also got blown up when he was at Georgia in college. It was gruesome. There's been some talk out there whether it was a dirty hit. I think it was Minkah Fitzpatrick, who I think also got hurt on that play. Whether that was a dirty hit or not, I don't think it was a dirty hit. I don't love the hit, and it's just hard being a defensive player at times. Like, you can't go too high. You can't go going too low in this scenario. Like, should have gone more mid-body, but, like, that's easier said than bringing down Nick Chubb by mid-body. But, like, at the same time, he was getting tackled up high by one defender. Minkah comes in low. Obviously, that's like a chop block in other situations, protecting a player, but not a runner. So it's hard. Football's a contact sport. It sucks to see what happened to Nick Chubb. Do I think it was dirty? I don't think the intent was dirty necessarily. Maybe the form wasn't great, but the intent wasn't there by any stretch. Chris, the separation to me from McCaffrey has separated himself from everybody else at this point, especially with some of these injuries we've seen. Like, McCaffrey is one on this board, I feel like, every week moving forward unless something changes. Tony Pollard getting that favorable matchup should have a monster week this week against Arizona and that defense. I talked about Bijan Robinson, Chris. I just think he's a tremendous runner of the football. They need to get that guy the ball in his hands. He's electric on a team that's has other playmakers that they don't really like getting the ball, like Kyle Pitts, and at least this week they got London involved a little bit on the outside. Get the ball to your playmakers. It's not like, your quarterback's going to be the difference. Ritter is not. He's more of a game manager than anything. So get in the hands of Bijan Robinson. Let's see what happens. ETN's a sneaky, honestly, a sneaky top 5 running back for the rest of the year, Chris. Not that he's going to blow you away with some numbers week to week. And didn't do much last week against the Chiefs, but you look at all these injuries and you're like, all of a sudden, Travis Etienne, there's only 6 running backs, Chris, that have played 100 plus snaps through 2 weeks. Etienne's one of those 6, along with McCaffrey, Ramondre Stevenson, Saquon, who obviously now is out, Rashad White, and Kyron Williams are the only 6 to play 100 plus snaps through 2 weeks. So just for that alone, he's going to be top 5 in snaps on a weekly basis. He's clearly number 1 on a offense in Jacksonville that should be good. Didn't look great last week, but should be good. Kyron Williams is here. Chris, I think people are too down on Kyron. Dude's been phenomenal through 2 weeks. Had a bad catching situation where it went through his hands and ended up being a turnover on a pick last week. But otherwise, he's been the bell cow for an offense in LA that's looked way better than expected, I think, coming into this season. I like what he has to offer. And then James Cook, Chris, I featured James Cook in the top 10 last week, and I don't know that any other rankings out there had James Cook top 10 in the running back last week, and then he goes for $123 last week. So I like James Cook a lot. I'd like him even more if they would give him the ball inside the 5-yard line, which they just haven't done yet. So maybe that's just not what they're going to do. But James Cook is a guy that on an elite offense that's going to be the bell cow there for the most part, minus some of those goal line touches, unfortunately. And that's why he doesn't crack in my top 5. But otherwise, you just kind of have some of your regulars. Derrick Henry, Kenneth Walker had a great week last week, so we'll see if he gets that momentum coming forward. And then Joe Mixon, who at this point is kind of just like very boring, but like okay. It's hard to find 10 guys, but with all the injuries you have at running back, it's not a deep position right now.
Yeah. We're going to talk about tight ends here in a minute, who's definitely not a deep position. But, I mean, Kyron Williams stands out as well. So 2 touchdowns week 1, 1 touchdown week 2. So 17.4 fantasy points week 1, 28 week 2. He also, keep in mind, had 17.4 fantasy points against a Seattle team, decent team there, and 28 fantasy points against a stout San Francisco defense. So he's like, there was a reason why Sean McVay felt really good about moving off Cam Akers and saying, hey, all right, go find yourself a new team. We're going to send you off to Minnesota. And that's the thing is once Sean McVay likes a couple guys in that lineup, he rides them and he makes them very successful when it comes to not only just on the field for just standard football games, but for fantasy football purposes as well. You see that with, Cooper Kupp, Pua Nakua, Tutu Atwell, all guys who are thriving under this offense and a revitalization of Stafford, who had injury issues last year and a lot of questions. It's a young team, new team. So that's an interesting side of things. But yeah, again, Bijan has been one of the strongest players, though. Putting up 20 points week 1, 21 points week 2, and he got an increase in carries. Went from 10 in week 1 to 19 against the Green Bay Packers. So that's only going to ramp up. Whether or not, it's going to get a little bit higher than that, I think it might, but I think they're going to start incorporating him more in the receiving game as he gets more comfortable in this offense as well. So the sky's the limit for him. He is dynamic, and he's going to be very, very good. Let's see. Haven't watched it yet. Don't want to. Yeah, don't check it out. Don't check it out. ETN.
It wasn't as bad as some of the other ones, in my opinion, to watch because I watched it because I can't not. I don't have that ability to not.
You and me both. You and me.
To me, it wasn't as gruesome as some of the others.
Remember Willis McGahee's? That one was rough.
Alex Smith.
Alex Smith had a rough one.
Was brutal. Even Dax, because you not so much what happened, but then you just see the leg dangling. At least this, you don't see the leg dangling.
Yeah.
Too much information, but it's not great. It's not great to watch, but
don't look it up.
Watch it. I have problems. I gotta see a train wreck.
ETN was on my fantasy last year.
Train wreck.
Yeah. No, I'm here for the train wreck, but I still don't. Yeah, it's weird. ETN was on my fantasy last year. Sucked for fantasy points. Well, he had he had some decent games, but I think this year it's a different story. They're using him quite a bit. You want to talk about a position that's just been absolutely awful.
How do you rank tight ends at this point?
Tight ends have been, outside of Kelsey and Hawkinson, everything else is just I mean, even then, Kelsey was injured week 1. Hawkinson didn't have exactly the best week 1, rebounded a week 2. So it's been a weird week, but we have a couple guys here. We have Kelsey, Hawkinson, Andrews, Waller, some of the big names there at the top. Typically, you're used to seeing those guys. Then you get into the middle tiers in the top 10 here. Evan Ingram, Goddard is one we've highlighted. Sam Laporta and Luke Musgrave end up making the top 10 here at 9 and 10.
Yeah, Chris, the leading tight end in receiving yards through 2 weeks is Darren Waller with 112.
It's not
through
good.
2 weeks. That's an average of 56. That's not to be leading is wild. And he's not right now. Hunter Henry, I think, leads in fantasy points through 2 weeks with 22.8. Like, it's been anemic. Obviously, you can't not put Kelsey at 1. He did get a touchdown, although not a lot else last week as far as yardage. But you got to ride with Kelsey at 1. Hawkinson at least got 2 touchdowns last week, and he has 101 yards on the year. Keep waiting for kind of Andrews to pop off. Darren Waller, like I said, Ingram's at 106 yards through a couple games and hasn't got a touchdown yet, but I feel like he's going to get on the board there. I keep waiting for Dallas Goedert to get involved. And for fun, I'm like, let's just put 2 rookies at the bottom. Sam Laporta is actually he's 4th at 102 yards through 2 games. No touchdowns for him though, but like he's been, pretty decent so far in his first 2 games with Detroit. And Luke Musgrave's just my guy, Chris. He's got 75 yards through 2 games, but I think they're going to start targeting him a lot more. And I'm just riding. I wanted to put 2 guys that have like some semblance of like upside because they're young and they could just pop off and then take off from there. So the vets, you didn't deserve 9 and 10 this week. So I'm putting 2 rooks in there, and really it's impossible to rank tight ends right now because they've been so trash so far this year.
Yeah, across the board. I mean, from a total accumulated fantasy points, if you drafted Travis Kelce in the first round, like a lot of people did, you have tight end 20 right now, based off of just his 1 game. Obviously, he's only had 1 game, so you take that into account. But I mean, knowing that he's top, I think 5 average when it comes to average fantasy points. But still, I mean, that just tells you, even with like the injury concerns with him or just the shot in the dark of some of these other guys that you thought were going to be good and not quite Freiermuth. If you drafted Freiermuth, he's kind of had a rough start to his season. Mark Andrews had injury issues. You just can't trust anybody at this point. It's like, do we have to have a tight end at this point for anybody's fantasy league? Let's just take out the tight ends. We took out kickers in some leagues. At this point, it's just a weird. Hopefully it changes, and you're going to see some of those top guys rise to the top. But as of right now, early on, after 2 weeks, it's brutal for tight ends. Let's dive in. Let's see. I hope Freiermuth can do better this week against Las Vegas. I think he does have a bounce back. He's more of a buy low guy, I think, right now, if you somehow want to trade for him or if you want to like make a move. But Ingram had put up 9+ points for me. Yeah, you're not getting anything spectacular though, right? You're getting 6 to 8 points, maybe in that range. But anyways, defense, special teams rankings here. We'll dive into these. Cowboys, best defense in the NFL from a lot of people's perspective. Chiefs have been playing out of their mind, and 49ers as well. But we got Eagles, Patriots rounding out the top 5. Jets, Browns, Ravens, Jags, and Dolphins finishing out the bottom half. But Cowboys and Chiefs, 1 and 2.
I mean, Cowboys is a layup right now, especially that they got Arizona this week. So we didn't talk about that game, but they're just like the Chiefs. They're around 12-point favorites at home against the Cardinals, and that defense has been electric through 2 weeks. They're the layup number 1. Chiefs, in a matchup where I just think they're going to get sacks. Like, I'm not saying week to week. A lot of times I like to, you want to play great defenses, but a lot of defense week to week is going to be based off matchups. Getting, Justin Fields and this dumpster fire of the Bears thus far, you're going to put up sacks. You're probably going to get turnovers. I mean, literally, Shaq Barrett, who got the pick six at the end of the game last week to seal that win against the Bears, said, "Oh, the Bears ran the same play 3 straight times from the same formation." And then you go back and you look and you're like, they sure did. And on the third one, he picked it off on a screen pass. It was 3 straight screen passes, same formation, same play. And he picked it off and ran it like 3 yards into the end zone. 49ers against a kind of injury decimated Giants team. Eagles, I don't think the Bucs are just going to go off offensively. Patriots get to play the Jets, so that's why the Patriots and Jets are 5-6. They get to play each other's offenses. Browns have played obviously pretty well through 2 weeks, and they get the Titans, who are susceptible to sacks. Even in the win last week, I think the Chargers sacked Ryan Tannehill like 5 times. Ravens in a game against Houston, or are they Indy? I'm drawing a blank now. Ravens are against Indy, sorry, and the Jaguars are against Houston. So 8-9, Dolphins at 10 against your Broncos, Chris. But yeah, I don't know.
I mean, Dallas Cowboys are by far the best defense as of right now, especially from a fantasy perspective, averaging 25.5 points per game. And obviously it's skewed a little bit based off of what they did against the Giants, because the Giants, they absolutely obliterated for, what was that? I think they put up like 35 or 40 points, depending on how your fantasy league scores. But currently in the leagues that we have here in our fantasy ActionLab leagues, they're averaging 25.5 points for fantasy points this season. The next best is 13.5, and that's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who've had some very easy matchups. Steelers are 13, only 2 teams in the 13 range, and then the rest kind of fall off and are kind of average at best, kind of hovering around 9 or 10 or 8 fantasy points. So only 3 teams up until this point. I think the Buccaneers fall off a little bit because they got the Philadelphia Eagles coming down the schedule here on the slate. And then I think the Steelers kind of gravitate up a little bit. Steelers have the Raiders. They're going to be awful as well. But
they probably easily made this list.
They didn't make the list here, but I think they could be a good matchup if you're looking to start them as well. Devil Dog, no Steeler love, just kidding. But I think the Steelers have a really good matchup this week, and especially against Garoppolo, and I think they can put some pressure on. So, let's see, is that guy on Brown's line still hurt?
Like Myles Garrett?
Is that who you're talking about?
I don't think he's not hurt, is he?
I'm not sure.
Been hurt.
Myles Garrett, he was limping around. He's not 100%. He was limping around the last game. He came off the field a couple times, and he didn't.
He's good to go.
Yeah, I think he should be fine. So
there are way too many injuries in that game in general. So many people getting hurt left and right.
The curse of Monday Night Football.
But, guys, if you guys have any other fantasy questions, you have to join our Discord to be a part of what we got going on. ! Discord in the chat, Rec, if you could. Make sure you guys join in. And, again, as you're leading up to games, feel free to ask not only Scotty and myself, but our community. Hey, what do you think about this? Should I start this player, or should I sit this player? Or here's who I got. What would you guys do? And we can kind of help you out a little bit. We're all a family here. We're all looking out for each other, unless we're playing against you and we're not going to give you shit. So
I'm going to lie.
So. Yeah. Then that's a whole different story. So sorry, I'm not sorry.
You can't handle the truth.
But guys, good luck in all your fantasy matchups. Good luck in all your bets. Good luck in all your teams. And guys, it's going to be a fun week.